You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 381, War-Mantle. We are finally coming around the corner here to the very last 3 episodes of season 1 of The Bad Batch. And for as much flack as last week's episode took, I think this week made up for it in stride. So to help me kind of break all that down is, of course, Jonesy. Jonesy, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, man. I'm doing excellent. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Kicked it old school there on the intro.
I clicked the wrong button. I was like, no, I'm not going to pull it back out. It was.
Hey, before we get started, I got to do a health check on you because issue 7, of course, of the High Republic came out, the comic, and the last panel, last page was a bit traumatic for some people about what it might be, might be insinuating here. Are you doing okay? You holding it together?
Yeah, I was. I spent some time in the ER last week because of it, but I am better, recovering just fine, and I did get a chance to. We probably can talk about it since it's already been out for a few days now. It's only a comic book, but there's an image of Avar Kriss, the skull of Avar Kriss with a bunch of Drengir, tentacles kind of running through her eye sockets and mouth and all that, and.
I think Indiana Jones with the snakes coming in the skulls and everything.
Yeah, I actually made
same visual image.
I don't know if you saw that. I did an edit where I took that clip of Indiana Raiders of the Lost Ark, and right when Marion turns and she sees that snake coming out of the mouth, I cut over to the image of Avar Kriss, and then it cuts back over again a second time, because that was the first thing I thought of, is like, good Lord, he just pulled the Raiders of the Lost Ark on us.
Right. But did Kevin Scott ever reply to that?
He liked it.
I know you tagged him. Okay,
yeah, no, he did like it. So
okay.
But yeah, it was a little traumatic. So I appreciate you checking in on me. And for those of you that send flowers and warm messages, thank you as well.
We care.
Yep. I think everybody should. So, hey, we got a couple things to talk about news-wise, and then we'll get into a very cool episode. Like, I was pretty happy. I think general consensus is a lot of people were very happy with this episode and potentially where it could go. So all that's great. But let's kick it off with the, I know we started a question of the week kind of thing here. What was this week's?
Yeah, so this week was, what's your favorite Sid nickname for the Bad Batch? And so Goggles took Goggles got the most votes. It took the crown. But Bandana got some call outs. Even Tiny did, which I was a little bit surprised by. Of course, my personal favorite is Dark and Broody, because I don't know why, but it just came out so well. I don't think so. I'm not Mike. So what about you? What's your favorite nickname for one of the?
I would have go to Goggles too.
Goggles.
So. Yeah,
it's a close second for me. Really close second. Mm-hmm. You really can't go wrong with any of them, though. And then we had Muscles, of course, for the week. So that was it was nice to have a pretty well-rounded approach. I feel bad, man. Echo still doesn't have one.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think the question now, the open question is Echo going to get one? And I think we joked about it last week about what would it be, multi-tool or screwdriver or whatever.
go Gadget Echo.
Yeah, Inspector Echo. But yeah, those are great. So thanks everybody for sending in your responses. That's always a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, every Wednesday we throw that out there on social media. So anybody wants to respond, it's out there on all the major ones, and we appreciate the interaction. It's a lot of fun for us, and we'll highlight them here on the show every week. Hopefully, if we put it in the show notes, we'll remember.
Yeah, right. I'm putting up everybody that's with us tonight on the live show. So thank you all for being here. First and foremost, we'll reach back out to you here at the very end and give you another shout out and thanks. But in addition to that, we have some new people that joined Discord this week. That was pretty exciting to see. Yeah. I know we had a fellow was it Ben?
Ben, all the way from Australia.
Yeah. We've
got a fantastic
Aussies and some people out across the pond as well that are pretty avid followers of the show.
Yeah, we do. So we appreciate it. We know it's tough to sync up with us, but we appreciate the messages, and of course, coming out into Discord. So eargleemedia.com/Discord. We always kind of plug it here in the show. We also plug it when people reach out to us to see if they want to come out and check the interaction, because we've had a ton of Bad Batch conversation as usual. but with all the other shows that are out across all the other films and Black Widow and some of the controversy going on there's been a lot of great conversation. So continue to encourage everyone to come out and check it out, see what it's all about. Albert and I are there most of the time, so it's a lot of fun, good discussion. We have a really great crew out there too.
Yeah, great moderators, people that are always very welcoming as well, which is really nice to see. I think someone actually commented like, "Wow, hey, people actually are here and they talk to you." Yeah,
right.
That's kind of what happens. There's so speaking of shout outs, quick thank you to somebody's with us tonight. So Risk Bayless has joined our Patreon members. Thank you so much. I know that he's been checking out the show here a lot recently, joining us in live shows. Again, he's here tonight. So awesome of you to do that. Thank you very much. As well as Matthew Cato, who's actually been a Patreon member before. I think he's kind of come and go depending on certain things or whatever, but that's awesome. I mean, we're glad to have you back. So thank you both to Matthew and to Risk for signing up for Patreon. And Jonesy, if people want to find us and support the show, and we'll talk about what they get, but where can they go?
Is this because you can't remember the link?
Yeah, I don't remember the link. This is why I like to go, Jonesy, take it away.
Yeah, so patreon.com/thecantinacast, and you'll get the 3 tiers out there, $1, $2, or $5. Of course, the $2, you get the after show that we do after this pretty much every week, unless there's circumstances we're unable to control. And then at the $5, the After Dark, or the Green Milk tier, I'm sorry, you get the comic books and all of the extra content that we're producing. And speaking of which, Albert just released the 2nd issue of The High Republic.
Yes, I did, and I'm already working on the 3rd one. I actually want to get caught up now, so that as the new issue comes out every month, you're not having to wait a long time. So I've actually written the 3rd one now. That's a big one, big step. And then I'll record it this week, and I'm going to try to get it out by Friday of this week at the very latest. So I think Jonesy and I committed to doing at least, was it maybe 2 per month in these? And
something like that, yeah.
But yeah, so, and I'm probably going to I'm going to try to push all these through to get them done so that we can get caught up. But then I'll go back to a normal cadence so I can have a personal life on top of all that.
Such an overachiever, man.
Well, it's
and of course,
it's like I want to talk about issue 7, and I can do it on social media. We can do it here, but what I really want to do is to break it out and talk about it on a video of some sort. So
and issue 6 was really good too.
Yes.
But yeah, it'd be nice to get caught up. We had War of the Bounty Hunters 2 come out, so I'm starting to work on that as well.
Excellent.
So hopefully here in the next week or so we'll have the 2nd issue of that one out, and we'll see if I can keep up with Albert's wonderful production values.
Thank you. If you were was it a $2 tier member, or is it $3?
It's been $2, but it's about to go back up to $5. So if you want to hear what we got, go out there and check it out now at the $2 tier. And if you like it, whenever it kind of goes back to the $5, what we committed to the folks at the higher tier, you will start to get that. We'd love to have you there if you like it.
Yep. Cool. Yes. And for those of you watching live, your eyes doth not deceive you. Jonesy is standing for the first time, I think, ever that we've done this show.
No, when I had the green screen, I stood all the time.
Oh, did you have to? Okay.
But it's been a long time. But I did a little cleaning up in here and decided to shake things up. So pretty happy with it. So I thought I'd stand. Plus, man, this stool kills my back, man.
Well, it looks good, man. You look good standing there. So
I look a lot taller all of a sudden.
Yeah, like you do.
Because I'm not that tall.
I can go up a little bit higher if I need to. All right, well, let's get into the Bad Batch and kind of crack open this. What I think is, I said this last week that we were all signs, and this is again in the dark webs, the dark Star Wars rumor webs, that this was going to be one of 3 episodes, part 1 of a 3 arc, and certainly turns out to be. That was never confirmed, but it looks that way. Would you agree that it looks like we're going to have 3 complete episodes all linked together at this point?
Yeah, I mean, everything suggested, with all the way from the cliffhanger ending to everything. And this was just so action-packed all the way through that it just never slowed down, it seemed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
what do you
definitely
think?
the way
Give me your overall thoughts here. Sorry.
I thought it was fantastic. I mean, I think this is what was really cool. I was trying to think why I liked this episode so much. And I got to be honest, I think it may have been the music and some of the animation and cinematography. But the music was like it was straight out of A New Hope. I mean, some of it was straight out of A New Hope, right? But it just had that vibe of just like they're on the Death Star trying to sneak around and do it all. It just had that just feeling, and just recreated all of these. It's not even nostalgia. It's just good fun, and just good TV. And man, I just enjoyed it from just start to finish. It was really cool. Of course, I got super excited as soon as we saw Republic Commandos. or commandos, whatever they're going to call
Commandos,
them.
yeah.
And then we were all debating and doing some research about whether or not we saw Scorch there from Delta Squad at
Yep.
the end. And if you believe Wikipedia, we have confirmation.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I can quite trust that, because I think a lot of people just would get super excited. But the color scheme was there, and he was a bit of a badass. So I will
Yeah,
take it.
we'll
But
get
before
him.
we go into too much, but yeah, what do you think?
Well, so with you 100% on the music. Like there were moments in there where the music was exactly what it needed to be and
Mm,
foreshadow what was about to come, right? Whether in
absolutely.
very poignant moments when they were kind of alluding to here are the beginnings, the inklings of the empire, which I thought was great. In fact, it's one of the few times. I mean, the music has always been amazing, but it's one of the few
Mm,
times where the music. I'm going to say it took me out of the show, but in a good way, because as I was watching and analyzing it, it was just so prevalent, and
mhm.
you couldn't help but think, "Whoa, the music is." I know exactly where that's from. So that was really good. The animation. I mean, get out of here. The beginning, those
Man,
opening shots
it was
there
incredible.
on Darrow are just incredible. Like some of those, I think I posted something or I retweeted somebody's tweet, but it's
Mhm.
almost indistinguishable if you're not really paying attention to. I mean, it looks like real life shots.
Really does.
The
Yeah.
shadows and everything. Also, when the scene that first opens up and they're in the dark and all that, that was really great. But overall, I would agree. This was even as I was writing the show notes. Normally we have quite a long, lengthy set of notes, and there wasn't as much in this one. And that's not to say there wasn't a lot that happened. A lot of it was just action based, which was great because I think coming off that last episode where everything felt questionable for a lot of folks, and
Yeah.
understandably so. This was a big kind of refresher. We needed this. I think a lot of folks needed this, and a reminder of that this is 16 episodes. There are going to be episodes like that, but you're also going to get episodes like this. And my gut tells me the next two aren't going to let up, right? I mean, Filoni is known
Right.
for ending series on pretty dramatic notes and leaving cliffhangers and bringing in cameos and kind of going over the top. I mean, all I got to do is point you to, you know, uh, the finale of season 2 of Rebels, where Vader shows up, and not only does he show up, he shows up riding a Tie Fighter with his
Right.
lightsaber out. Right? I mean, so he expect the kind
So
of over the
dramatic.
yeah, expect that coming up. I mean, and who knows what's going to happen? We're going to speculate on that here a little bit later. But yeah, I thought it
Right.
was a great episode, and we'll kind of just segue right into the beginning here. And I want to say this too. I haven't heard anybody point this out. Not to say that I've been trolling around looking for it, but the opening sequence was very reminiscent of ET for me,
Yeah.
where the lights were there. You had the darkness. You could see everything at half shot. The dogs, the running through the forest. It was all like right out of ET. And then there was other moments in here that reminded me of Close Encounters of the Third Kind with Devil's Mountain or Tower or whatever in that too. But mainly that was the first thing I thought. It was like, whoa, they're like paying homage to ET here, the opening sequence to ET. So if they did, cool. If they didn't, you're not going to change my mind. They still did. But we open with Gregor, who we don't really know at this point. Like, we don't know that's Gregor. He's
Right.
running through the forest. We know later on that we learned that he escaped from here, which I got a question. They never really addressed it, and he kind of hints at it. But any just kind of quick thoughts as to how he got away? Do you think he was like? Because it sounded like he was already under arrest for dissension, right? And so he found a way out. But they don't really allude
I
to it. Does it really matter at this point?
No, and I didn't really question how he got out. I assume they probably didn't know he was leaving, and then he triggered something as he was going, or someone caught wind of it, and then they started chasing him. So
Yeah.
I didn't really put much thought into it beyond that. I thought about it for a few minutes. I was like, you know what, it's okay. He got out once. He probably had to do a little sneaking, but again, maybe people didn't realize that what he was actually up to. So,
Yeah.
but I didn't really have to think any harder than that on it.
Well, and Gregor is a man of mystery, which we'll get into later when we're talking about his origin. And it's
Yeah,
the same conversation we had in Rebels. We're about to have the same whole conversation once again now that he's back.
he is
But
something special.
he is something special, yes. Nonetheless, it's Imperial forces that are following him. He
Right,
manages to slap that little homing beacon underneath the tree, that fallen tree there. He gets stunned twice, which was kind of cool. Like the first stun didn't it hit him in the legs, which kind of
right.
slowed his speed down, and then he got hit with the second one. and that kind of finally took him out, and that kind of ends that sequence. But again, up until this point, we still don't know who he is. We just see that he's a clone that's escaped. So
Right.
um, a lot of stun guns in this one. So we don't need to pull the Band-Aid off just now, but
Mm.
I'm starting to wonder too. There's been some really good strong points made about stun guns and tactically what you
Mm.
can do with them. I
Right.
think it goes against the grain in terms of what we expect in Star Wars, having been fed only two stun bolts, or well, only one in the movies, right?
Right.
And several minor uses in the Clone Wars, and same thing with Rebels. But for the most part, I'd say 98% of the time, 99.9% of the time, we're expecting blaster bolts. So
Right.
here, I think they at least showed a tactical advantage of kind of slowing them down, and later on we can talk about that as well. But did it bother you in this episode? Like I didn't focus on it like I did maybe the last episode, even though I was aware of it given the amount of
Right.
discourse that happened last week.
There was a lot. I mean, it seemed like this would be the time where they would just but it was. I think it's more that it's I think the third episode in a row where it's
Mhm.
almost exclusively stun bolts
Right.
from Clone Force 99. I think that's the part that's probably odd. It just feels a bit odd and a bit strange to continually see this when it's like, okay, well, in every other movie and everything, they shoot at them now. And we talked about this in Discord quite a bit this week too, about how much sense does it make to use stun, and does it make more sense to use stun, or is it really? Because I still don't buy into the whole, they don't want to kill their brothers because they knew they weren't their brothers at some point in this episode, right? So some of that excuse kind of goes out the window now. Maybe not before, but I don't. It doesn't really bother me too much because I think we saw the value of it here, and I think we kind of questioned it a bit before, and we had kind of flirted and skirted around that a little bit too. But I think it made a lot more sense in this episode for them to use stun, and even with Scorch didn't seem all that effective either. Anyway,
Yeah. Well, he took a few before
yeah, that
had
guy's
any
a
kind of
tank.
impact. Yep. All right. From there, we swing over back to Camino, which I mean, I don't know that Camino's ever looked that good,
Mm.
especially with those like well, I call them Star Destroyers, but I forget what they called them in the Republic, cruisers
Venator
or
Venator
yeah,
class,
the Venator
yeah,
class ships. They have them just hovering there in the background. It was very reminiscent of some of the best stuff that we saw in the Rise of Skywalker with all of the Star Destroyers, but
yeah, and the
shades of
lightning and
that.
the rain, yeah,
Yep,
it was fantastic.
great stuff. But interesting enough, the troops are they're loading up these ships with like equipment, right? You can see them in the background. It's in passing. They don't really call it out on the audio description. It does, but you can definitely see them loading up equipment, what appear to be arms at times.
Mhm.
And I don't know if we're going to get an answer to this, or maybe it's an answer that's probably obvious given where this kind of story goes by the end of the thing. But did you get a sense of where they're going? Do you think they're taking everything off world here and heading out to Darrow? Or do you think they're prepping and ramping up for some other mission that we're not aware of, some other big assault? And I've got an idea of where that would be, but where would they go? Like, who is really in contention right now with the Empire?
Well, that's the thing I'd like to hear where you think it might be going. I just want to. It's a place where them taking weapons off and big stores of that, if they're starting to deploy across the galaxy, especially with the recruits and wherever they're actually being trained, and we kind of presume they were being trained here on Camino. Of course, now we're finding out they're being trained all over the galaxy, which makes a ton of sense, right?
Hmm.
But I don't. So I don't know. It's hard to put a lot of stock into all of that unless they're actually loading up equipment for an actual move off planet, which we're not really still seeing a dramatic, pull out of forces. And we do have a curious moment there with Nala Se when she's walking down the hall with the toddler cadets. But yeah, all right. So where are they going? Tell me where they're going. I'm really curious now. I can't think straight because I want to know where you're going.
Um, well, so I was trying to think like who could they be at war with? Like who would they need if they were ramping up for war? Um, who would they be going up against? And really, the only presence that we're aware of, at least at this point, given the timeline, would be somebody like something like Mandalore. Maybe they're going in there, they're going to clean house with Death Watch and everybody else, just wipe everybody out, and that's what becomes the scorched planet that it's talked about in the Mandalorian, and maybe that's the beginning of that. I honestly don't buy into the fact that they're going to war. I just thought it was interesting that they
Right.
were packing up that much and leaving, and they made it a point to kind of show it because there's like it's not just one ship, it's like every
Right.
ship in that hangar is getting loaded up, and so either
Right.
they're going out for some kind of big assault in front and the only people that I could even think would be a threat or anybody they'd want to wipe out or ensure didn't rise to power again would be the Mandalores, right? They don't want those guys around.
Yeah, I
Um,
guess it depends on how serious they take Saw Gerrera.
yeah,
Because
that's
they
true
didn't
too.
really seem to take him that seriously to deploy that kind of firepower to him. But it doesn't mean they're all going to the same place either, I guess.
Right, right. And I actually I think I subscribe to what you said initially was this is probably just standard operation at this point. It's a large galaxy. They've just taken over they've just taken power. There's a lot of things they need to do, establish, regimens in different groups and keep people in line, that sort of thing. So it just could
Mhm.
be part of the standard operation. Or the other, or some of that is also going back to Darrow, right? Loading up everything, getting out of Camino because the training seems to be happening. At least a good portion of it. I mean, 1,000 troops at least
Yeah.
is happening there, and it's probably happened other places. So they could be just moving everything they need to and getting off this planet because they're about to wipe the whole thing out, or whatever else. I think it's a bad sign either way for the Kaminoans,
Yeah.
because War-Mantle, right? We're getting into that here in just a minute.
And
Um,
actually, what you're saying makes a lot more sense with what Lama Su tells Nala Se later on in the episode too,
yeah.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
The writing's on the wall. He's thinking, okay, why are they suddenly doing a mass exodus? How about that?
There you
To get everything out. I'm just making up words tonight. Don't even care. And we get Crosshair and Rampart at this point. He mentions that they're ahead of schedule here with the operation, assuming Operation Project War-Mantle.
go. Right.
He says they need every available clone mobilized. So they are again taking everyone out of here, and all that's going to be left is the Kaminoans and anybody that they want to kind of wipe out. I would imagine.
Right.
Um, the and that I've already addressed the question, but whether or not Camino was a staging planet for the war efforts, it certainly does look like that to some extent. But again, it feels like they're picking up and leaving out here. Then Crosshair asks about the Kaminoans themselves, and Rampart kind of glances over, and says, "Hey, we have we have our orders, and they're going to be dealt with a little bit later." Which I think they were alluding to at that point that this is
Yeah.
the end. And we've talked about this. We speculated a number of episodes ago about what was going to be the end game here, and especially with the Empire, because we got the sense that the Empire wasn't really, they're going to use you for whatever they need in the minute you are no longer wanted or necessary. A politician, for example, if he is that,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, they're gonna get rid of you. So, um, now here's the one. This is a very interesting part. I was thought there would be more here, and I want to get your thoughts on. Nala Se is kind of walking, and she's got that little squad of adolescent troopers, right? They look like
Right.
little bobas, is what they look like.
Mhm.
And she mentions that they're going to be trained off world, and I couldn't tell whether or not this was her grabbing those kids and trying to take them to safety, or were those kids also being offloaded from Camino onto another planet to truly be trained and grown up? Because I don't, I mean, especially by the end of this episode, I don't know that they're going to be cloning any more clones.
Right.
Because War Mantle seems like it's just a transition kind of project, right? Get everybody trained up, and then when the clones die off, they die off, and then we'll recruit internally and kind of have our own group. Or were they, was she taking them off world to protect them because she knew that because they're not going to be used, and why would you want to have to? I mean, yeah, they're accelerated, but they don't. If they're getting off Camino, they're not going to have the facilities to raise these kids in the way they have traditionally done so in the past.
Right. And I think that's where she hasn't received the order from Lama Su yet to basically organize anybody to leave. So I don't know that we can definitively say that no, she's trying to save clones or anything like that. This sounds like it's probably a bit more like the order that we got just a few minutes ago with the Empire saying every viable clone. And I think that includes the kids. I mean, we've seen the kids be able to fight. They may not always be near as effective as their adult counterparts, but I could see where they would deploy them to these facilities and they would at least have some supply of clones while they continue to build up the rest of the new Imperial army.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I think it's something more along those lines because they're right out in the middle of the open and then talking very openly about it. So it didn't seem very secretive at the very least, right?
Yeah.
So it seems like it is on the up and up. At least it was asked of them, or it is expected that this is what they're doing, and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yep. Tuan in the chat says, I got the feeling that the Empire was going to dispose of them. Yeah, there's a part of me that thinks that as well. And maybe, like you said, Nalase didn't know because she hadn't gotten the order, so they told
Right.
her, "Oh, load up all the kids, put them in this one big vessel, and we're going to send them off to get trained." And really, they just blast them right into a star or something. Ha! See, that's how you do it. Just wipe them out like that. I'm perfectly fine. I really am.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. You had a question in here about is it just me or is her hair lighter brown than normal? I
Did
think so
it? I
too.
mean, it
Well,
looked
no, it
like it.
did. No, it's legit.
Oh,
It does look lighter brown, but I don't know. There's been a lot of talk about the character's tone, like some of the brownish tones in this animation
mhm.
have not transferred over one for one from some of the stuff that we saw in the Clone Wars. So
Mhm.
I think it's just that. I don't know that it's their genes are changing or the DNA is over time is evolving to where now the hair is lighter. But facially, I think they tried to use the model that they had used of that young Boba Fett in the Clone Wars, based on
Right. So
how it looked.
I went and found screenshots and a little bit of video from the Clone Wars, and there's always been variation in the hair color. So everywhere from the really dark jet black that we've
Hmm.
seen, for some of the adult clones, to all the way from the color that we actually saw in this episode to kind of a more natural brown. Of course, then you have the kids that bleach their heads, I guess, and which we've seen a couple of. So the more I thought about it, I was like, okay, it's probably nothing, but it just seemed it would at least fit the narrative a bit, where the code is breaking down or whatever is going on that they're concerned about with the genetic template, that there's something with that, and it's a visual representation of it at the very least.
Yeah. Right. Keaton says I listened to the last few episodes on podcast. Glad to be here live. Thanks for joining us.
Yep, good to see you.
Appreciate that, man. Okay, so we get we get that conversation, pretty pivotal. Nalase talking to Lama Su. There's the mention of all the contracts being expired,
Yeah.
which, yeah, I mean that's another like, okay, so if the Empire's ending all the contracts, then it's very. I mean, they predicted this, right? I mean, I think it was Lama Su who predicted this earlier on in the season that they're
Hmm.
probably not going to want to be around here much longer, and so they were already kind of prepping about, hey, we're going to need a new clone type, and that's how they were. Why originally they were going after Omega, which now I'm starting to really question whether or not that's going to do. See, we're going to see anything there at this point, given the direction of the series.
Right.
But I did appreciate the fact, even though it is kind of in the past now, that he's one of the very few people that realize, holy crap, we empower these people to the point where they can do whatever they want and we can't touch them. I just thought it was refreshing. He even says we have empowered them, the Empire, to our own detriment, and it's very true. I mean,
Right.
they put all their chips in with them, and it is the hand that feeds them. It's also going to be the hand that bites them. So,
Yeah. And
pretty,
he
yeah,
calls it out for what it is. Yeah, they're going to destroy him. There's no expiration of contracts. It's annihilation.
hmm.
And I guess the question I had is like, what you already saw it. Why didn't you do more earlier?
Well, and
Or
that's
were you just trying to? They were just desperate attempts, of trying to escalate whatever they have going on. But yeah, I mean, now it seems like hunting for Omega is probably the lowest of low priorities at this point. Of course,
right.
Lama Su doesn't have many priorities anymore.
He's got yeah. The priority is pushing up daisies, but well, I think so, I think part of it too. Although they never really mentioned this, of course, pure speculation on my part. But
Mhm.
they may have had a plan that said, okay, we know they're not going to keep us around. We have to show our value. We have to show our worth. Let's get Omega back. Let's create the new version of these troopers. Show them that we can create, an entire legion of Clone Force 99s, right, or whatever it is. These new
Mhm.
enhanced troopers, and maybe through that we can get a new contract and show that we need to be kept around. And of course, that never panned out for them. So, I
Right.
think they had a short window. I think he was playing with there and hoping for the best and expecting the worst. And well, he got the worst. So that's
Yep.
probably him on the way out at this point. Okay, so the Bad Batch.
Well, but they're so yeah, real quick. So
Yeah.
they're going to collect the top scientists, right? So he
Oh,
wants
that's right.
Yeah, so he wants Nalase to go ahead and round up everyone and start to quietly get organized, and he's going to arrange transport for them to get off world. So we
Correct.
know for a fact they're definitely trying to leave at this point.
Yep. Um, where are we? Did I jump ahead here? I think I did a long time ago.
Maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
we didn't go back to the Havoc Marauder yet. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Sorry.
That was
Well,
all very simulous. It worked very well. Well done, sir.
yeah. Well, I got so excited because we were talking about Camino that we did skip over the Havoc Marauder sequence, and it's really not that long. But
Yeah.
it is important because they're on a mission already with Sid. I mean, it opened with them in hyperspace, and I was surprised that they were on a mission with Sid. Like I thought for sure at this point they would have cut that and just moved on. Nonetheless, they still are. They had a really cool moment in there with the blade. When Hunter's spinning his blade, and
Right.
yet another example of Omega trying to copy them or copy him. And we mentioned before that this is just something kids do. They see you do something and they're going to mimic it. You say
Right.
something, they're going to mimic it. You take an action, they're going to mimic it. It's just what they do. It's part of their development and learning.
Right.
Um, and then we get that message, the distress call from Reg, which we called. I mean, we said, well, either Rex is going to call them or they were going to call Rex. We knew that was going to happen. They've kind of foreshadowed that already. Sure enough, he tells them he wants them to go help him save a Reg, and they're a little shocked by that too, right? I think he says, "A Reg, really? Like, why are we going in for another one of these guys?"
Right.
Um, and they mention CC5576. Now, I will say I don't have all the clone numbers memorized, so I went and looked it up. I paused it that night and looked it up, and about screamed right out of my socks because I was thinking, so excited that we were going to get Gregor here.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
but
you
yeah,
have to get spoiled for everything, don't you?
I
You couldn't
do.
even let them bring it
No,
to you. You had to go
no,
out there and find.
nope, not gonna wait. Not gonna wait. But there was I mean, this is and then we get this kind of back and forth that we've had before, although it was funnier this time because Wrecker was constantly saying, "Well, he's got a point."
Yep.
But it's like Hunter not wanting to go, uh, Tech saying, "Look, with no money, we don't get food." Omega again is being the voice of compassion and friendship, saying, "Hey, we can't let somebody be stranded out there." And of course, you got Echo, who's like, "Hey, man, I this is Rex asking us to do something."
Hmm.
And if Rex says we need to do it, we need to do it. We shouldn't even be questioning. Why are we still talking about it, kind of thing. So,
Right.
I mean, in the end, Echo, you know, begrudgingly goes along with the plan, but he's still kind of, one foot in, one foot out until they get there to kind of see and assess. But any thoughts on just, or I guess, what were your thoughts on that little sequence? And then we'll jump back over to them actually arriving on Darrow.
Everyone plays their part, right? They're all, and Wrecker's just being the, I don't want to call him the lovable buffoon here, but he's very easily influenced of sorts with just
Hmm.
everything that's going on. And food is pretty important. He's got a point. And I thought it was funny though. I like the banter a bit with it all, but also it is curious. And Rex calling, it's a friend, right? And of course and I like that we finally got to see Echo really throughout this episode. Echo had more moments, I think, in this episode than he's probably had in all of the other episodes combined.
Yeah.
I mean, they still weren't monumental, maybe what we had expectations for with Echo, but at least he kind of came to life on this one, which
Hmm.
I really thought that was important. We finally get to see these things from him, especially when it comes to Rex. And we had this before when Rex showed up, but this time it was very different. He was the one that really called the group out on it multiple times
Right.
to make sure that they did what he trusts Rex explicitly. And I really like what he did later. He kind of threw everything back in their face. It was great. But yeah, I like the banter. I think this is another mission though. Again, this is what they do. So it's a little Hunter's being overly cautious, I think, but this is what they've done for years. So why would it be any different now than it was back then, especially when you have someone like Rex asking you to do it? But what was really curious though is you got to see the hesitation on Hunter, but he also thought through it a bit and still asked him, okay, well, what are you really wanting us to do?
Hmm.
What, so he at least was cautiously exploring it without just saying, that doesn't make sense, and just backing off entirely, which I thought was really good for Hunter. It was very subtle, but I thought it was very important to see that side of him finally coming across where he is starting to think in the different ways of the team, especially on the more compassionate side, because he knows Omega's probably going to chew him out anyway, maybe.
Yeah. No, I agree. In fact, I like the fact that he actually hadn't caught that he was actually kind of, or saw it, but didn't process that he was actually kind of going through that and thinking it through a little bit more than he normally did.
Right.
So thankfully he said yes. Otherwise we'd have a totally different episode. They
Right.
they arrive at Darrow, and and we get more of what you said. Hunter's still kind of questioning. He's very wary that they're there to rescue somebody. They have no idea who they are. You've got Echo pushing back, and I would agree. Echo had more here in this episode than he's had in a very long time, if overall ever. Yeah, he
Yeah.
definitely has direction and purpose because it's Rex, and if that's all it takes right now. That's fine, but at least gave him some motive here to do more than he has in the past.
Right.
They find that beacon, and Hunter, we got to see him use his skills. Like, he's only used them like once, maybe twice, I think, the very first episode, and when they were tracking down Kanan, back on that planet with the flashlight and the cave thing. Maybe not so subtle. This was definitely in your face, though, right? I mean, this was him as the tracker, smelling the dirt, realizing that it was too late. He was able to kind of see the patterns and the leaves and all that, and see that somebody had been dragged away. And later on, he puts his hand to the ground. He can feel. That was his whole trick, right? Is he's not just a good hunting person with heightened senses like smell, taste, and all that. He can feel the electromagnetic waves of devices. And when he put his hand to the ground, he probably felt a lot going on there, given that this planet was supposed to be a planet that was uninhabited and, hadn't really been, there wasn't even, I don't think there was, I think it mentioned there was not life there or something. I forget what the term was.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a lifeless planet. Yeah, not inhabited at all.
Right. So definitely felt something going on there, but I thought that was good. I mean, we got to see him, and I would say that, I meant to say this in the earlier on, we were kind of giving our, initial thoughts, but it felt like everybody contributed in this episode in more than one way at times. So whether it was through their own use of personal skills, or Gonki had a bit role here to play. Omega got to fly. He's using his skills, right? Echo standing up for what he believes in. Just everybody kind of contributed. So it was very balanced in that sense. But curious enough, they realize there's a base there, something there. But before they go further, they decide that they're going to send Wrecker and Omega back to the ship. Now, she's not happy about this.
No.
Wrecker seems like he could care less because he's going to take a power nap, right? That's what he ends up doing. But I don't know. I guess he gets a pass on this one, he being Hunter, because he said he wouldn't do that again. And we were starting to kind of see him build trust in Omega being part of the team and being part of the squad in these active missions. But I think he gets a pass here only because, hey, they were going into the unknown. They didn't want to send everybody in because then no one was going to bail them out. He wasn't really sure what to expect still. And so it kind of makes sense. You do need somebody back at the ship. And if that's an opportunity to not put her at risk, as a parent, I would probably use that as sorry, you're going to have to go. And, but we'll call you if we need you on this one for sure.
And like you said, it was just smart. I mean, you're going into a place you have no idea what to expect, especially when you find eventually you find it's a military installation, right? And a pretty serious one too. I mean, it just makes sense to have someone, because if you need a pickup or something emergency or a short notice, you've got to have someone ready and ready to go. Now, he didn't explain that really well, so it was a little bit of a surprise when we saw it. But at the same time, it just makes sense for them to have hold back. And it makes a bit of sense for it to be Wrecker, I think, too.
Yeah, I would agree. The other, you've got somebody like Tech you've got Hunter, who's pretty much can handle all of the tactical type things that need to happen as you're kind of infiltrating or doing reconnaissance kind of stuff, right? And then you've got the two tech heads that are there, and I don't think he was looking for a fight, right? So maybe you don't bring in the muscle. Wrecker can fly. He can run the gun on the back. Yeah, I think it makes sense. Probably the best person to choose here. It would have been sad if Echo would have been sent back, though. No, that was.
I don't think he would have taken it anyway. It would have like, the hell with you people.
Yeah, I'm out of here.
Go anyway.
This show sucks. I'm gone. Hunter. So they head back, and sure enough, they scale that little mountain big mountain, whatever it is. This is where I was getting feelings of Close Encounters of the Third Kind at the very end, where they're scaling Devil's Tower, and they get over the top and they look down and they see that there's the landing strip there. And what we see here is this is a whole base. Like, they've carved it out, AKA G.I. Joe, AKA Transformer style, in the mountain itself.
Right.
Which Tech actually makes a comment about being, that's a very formidable kind of defense that they've got set up, since they're kind of using this as a military base right out of there. And
there's really only one way you're in or out, right?
Sure. Yeah. And then you got just the natural, mountain itself to kind of protect you from the side. So kind of got a choke point in and out of that place.
Of course, easy to bomb, but whatever.
Yeah, easy to bomb, and you just drop it in the hole and you're done. There's there's a part there where they're looking through the binoculars and they see the new armor that they
Yeah,
mentioned. So they see clone troopers, clone commandos, heavy presence of clone commandos in this episode, which was kind of cool.
yeah, it was neat.
But and this is the first one. This is the first time that I recall in this episode, and happens many times when we talked about it earlier on. But this is the first time we got a musical cue, and it was one of the Empire songs, the songs of the Empire,
Mhm.
plays here just very shortly. So alluding to the fact that this is now an Imperial base, and yeah, it was kind of cool to hear in the show, honestly. So
It's fantastic. I mean, again, as soon as they get into the building, it felt like they were on the Death Star. I mean, the imagery, of course, and,
oh
and
yeah,
the lighting and everything else really helps that. But just the stylistic of it, and then the music playing was just 100% A New Hope, and it just really took you right back into that feeling of things, of
yeah,
the different scenes around the Death Star, right? When the troopers are going down the hall and talking on the comms, and you can hear a little bit of that too, and the same similar music is playing at the same time. It just really takes you back there. And so, for folks like us or people who grew up with the original trilogy, it's a really big deal. It feels really good. It's like one of those just moments where it feels home,
yep,
right? Kind of
yep.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we got shades of that during Mandalorian. The Mandalorian, there was moments when they went into the Imperial bases or whenever they're on there.
Right.
That was still very much all that same aesthetic, and it was very similar here for sure. There's you got Hunter realizes, I guess when they acknowledge that this is now an Imperial base or a base, he's like, well. I guess we'll just tell Rex we tried and let's get the heck out of here. And this is where Echo really kind of puts his foot down. He's like, "What the heck, man?" This is very similar to Ryloth, where he didn't want to go to Ryloth, but he
Mhm.
did. Once he got there, he realized what was needed from him, decided he was not going to go through with it. Omega pushed back. And in this instance, we have Echo pushing back and saying, hey, this is not what we
Yeah.
need to do.
Well, and that's, yeah, you guys did this at Skeko Minor. What's the difference?
Right.
If someone's being held there against their will, it's our duty to help them out because you guys did it for me. And he probably has an insane amount of gratitude towards that. Also, it's just the right thing to do right now. I think Echo has a real soft spot for this type of scenario. And the fact that they and Rex did it, I mean, why? You have it in the notes here. WTF, bro.
That's literally what it says.
Literally what it says.
Echo is all WTF, bro.
But it was cool. We got actually a callback to Skeko Minor though, and for again, it was a very obvious one for people who followed the Clone Wars. But it was a really that was a really intense sequence there, and a lot of really good stuff, and really there was a couple of really good episodes right in there too. So definitely go back if you're not familiar with Skeko Minor. Go back and watch the Bad Batch episodes from the Clone Wars.
Tuan says the difference is they had Anakin. Yeah, but you know what? Anakin's such a minor character. I
Right?
mean,
Never heard of him.
never. I mean, he died off, I think, in one of the movies. So
Yeah, probably took out children or something.
maybe. So yeah, for Echo, I think it's no, it's a good point, Juan. It's very personal for him too, right?
Yeah.
One, it's Rex. Two, he can empathize with what's happening down there to this person who they're going after, and so yeah, at that point, it's very personal. And so they call in to Wrecker and Omega, tell them they're going in after the reg. Omega wants to go. Hunter says, nope, you got to stay back. I need you for backup. I need you for an evac if we need it. They're kind of going in blind. Yeah, she kind of gives her the child pouty face
She's
there.
pissed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The kids do that. And then
do kids get angry at parent decisions?
oh, yeah.
I didn't know this. Oh, okay.
It's rare, but yeah, it does happen.
Oh,
And
okay.
Tech says that he's going to have to pinpoint this person, Gregor, that they're going to need access to the computer system, and so they figure out that the entry is an entryway to get in, and so I don't know. It's really not that impenetrable because they kind of got in pretty easily, if you all things considered. But you know what? It's a show, and we've got to move
Right.
the story along. So
I mean, he
it's
had to work
fine.
a little bit at it though, and it took him, and he did. At least we got the recognition that they're finally changing the codes. It's not one of those things. Well, let's see if my stuff still works here, and they put their hand to them, to the thing, and they haven't taken me out of the system yet, type of
Yeah.
thing. And
Right.
so I think it was good. At least we see that evolution happening, and the Empire's not completely stupid.
Yeah, I
Contrary to
mean,
popular belief.
if anybody leaves like a Jack in the Box as part of their offboarding, one of the very first things they do is cut off access to everything,
Right.
But in the Empire, sometimes it doesn't always happen, or in TV, that doesn't always happen. It's kind of a
They've
it's kind
they've
of an
definitely got
afterthought.
they've definitely got some administrative breakdowns as we have found from
Right.
like the from a certain point of view stories and things like that. So
Yes. Operationally, not a smooth running kind of
right.
gig, but
Yeah, not a lot of transparency. But
yeah. I want to see the Glassdoor rating for the Galactic Empire.
oh
I do.
boy.
Yeah. Glassdoor's a business thing where you can review businesses that you worked at. All right. We get into the Darrow base. So they jump on that lift and start heading down. They flip off of that. And this is where we got more music here. I think it was especially when they're sneaking around, you're getting the music from Kenobi sneaking around in the Death Star. Kind of when
Mhm,
he's jumping around. I think it's like a little, I want to say it's like it's a stringed instrument of some type. It's kind of like a
mhm.
plucking, prancing kind of thing,
Yeah.
sneaking around, which is great. Echo is going to need time to getting in because he says there's a new encryption, and I was like, oh, okay, well he's going to be able to hack that. No, they actually don't. But yeah, this is again signs that the Empire's doing the right things. They're not only are they phasing out the clones, but they're changing the protocols, changing the algorithms and encryption and all of that. So this is all
Right.
good stuff that you would expect them to do. And then we get that close up of the stormtroopers kind of walking by. And I know it's if you're a fan of the Ralph McQuarrie art, you know that this is they
Mhm.
went with the original design for the stormtroopers, which I think is awesome because it feels like if you put this helmet in the middle, and I want to do this, I want to take all these helmets now and start with all the way back from episode 1 of the Clone Troopers, or episode 2, I guess is where they come in, but episode 2 Clone
Mhm.
Troopers, and show that progression, the evolution of the helmet. This one notches right in perfectly there in the middle with what we see in some of the stuff from Rebels. So it
Yeah,
does
exactly.
look like it's a very cool a very smooth evolution of the helmets. But I'm glad they found a way to kind of work it all in because it is. I mean, if you were to show that art and go from what we see in the Clone Troopers in Episode 2 to what we see in Episode 4, it would be kind of a jump, but there's a natural evolution that's occurred there. So I know I'm probably
Do
going
you
a
have
little
the
too.
Stormtrooper book? You know, the one that's a white book with like the, Stormtrooper helmet face
I
on
think I
it?
have that digitally. I don't have like the big card covered version I've
Mhm.
seen, but yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I've got that one. Man, that's really cool. So if you're ever curious about everything to do with Stormtroopers, that's a really cool. Of course, then they had the evolution of the Stormtrooper with Rise of Skywalker coming out,
Yep.
right?
Hmm.
And when they were doing the Sith Troopers.
Yes.
So
Showing you how
yeah,
they
so
got
I
there.
yeah, so I like how we've seen that, but you're right. This fits in very, very nicely with Rebels. I mean, some of them are very, very close to it already. And again, even a bit an extent to Solo with what we saw with the Mud Troopers, right? Just with the goggle, the kind of the look to them at the very least. You get a lot of continuity, I think, with all of that. So it really does fit nicely together.
I guess through the process of in the computer, Echo is able to kind of get some additional information here. He mentions that there's 50 clone commandos and 1,000 TK troopers, and they start to
It's
question,
not bad. Not
yeah,
bad ratio.
TKs,
I mean, the kids have what, 22, 23 kids to a teacher in schools these days. So
right?
seems like pretty good numbers.
Yeah, 20. So yeah, I did the math. Not that it's a no big deal, but I did the math. 20 to 1 ratio here between 20 TK troopers to every one commando that's in charge of them, which would be a clone trooper, former clone trooper of some sort.
Yeah.
Um,
Formerly TK troopers now. Like we
yeah,
actually have hard confirmation they're now TKs,
they're
not
now TKs.
CTs.
Yeah, and this is where the whole like I mean the whole TK thing for a number of years there was no explanation. I thought it was the 501st that had. I think they go, don't they call them TKs in the 501st as well? And I think the reasoning
Yeah.
behind that was Trooper Corps, Corps with a K, going back to the whole Germanic thing with stormtroopers and
Mhm.
the influences from Nazi Germany and all of that. But
Right.
I've seen a lot of other explanations as to what TK stands for.
Right.
But what are your thoughts on it? Do you care? I don't really care.
I don't really care. I mean, at least the ones that we have from the Clone War era make a lot more sense, right?
Hmm.
CT is Clone Trooper. Although CC is interesting because we always thought it was Clone Commander, but CC 5576, right? It is um God,
Commando?
Gregor, right?
Or
Yeah, so
Gregor?
Gregor, but Gregor calls himself a commando.
Hmm.
not a commander. So is CC clone commando, or is that because we see clone commandos based on the armor that we're familiar with?
I think this was. I don't want to say they're rewriting it, but it feel. I know what you're saying, but I took it as, oh, okay, this is a confirmation that it's commando, and this is we're never going to talk about it again because it's just been established finally. But
okay,
I can go either way.
Right.
I mean, commando. I mean, maybe it was both, or maybe it was commander during the Republic, and now that they are commandos and leading the TKs, stormtroopers, then maybe they did just say, okay, it's no longer that. We're just going to use the CC to designate commandos since they're definitely different people than the other ones. So, who knows?
Right. Makes sense.
But they eventually make their way down there and rescue Gregor, who seems to be normal. Like he doesn't feel like, well, I mean, normal in the sense that he's not. He doesn't feel. It doesn't feel like he's under the influence of the inhibitor chip.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Sorry, not that. I mean, Gregor's kind of a weird character.
I was about to say he's not normal, dude.
Yeah, but he is different in that he doesn't feel like he's been impacted, or has he? And so I've got some thoughts around that. But if you had a guess, I guess, or if you had to put a theory down in terms of why he's going against the grain, deciding to leave, insubordination, whatever he's doing, whatever he's done, he says a little bit later that, hey, I didn't agree with everything they were doing, so I decided to get out. Do you think that's because, or I guess, what's your theory behind it?
Yeah, I think so you had postulated before that maybe the effects of the chip wear off. And that's starting to gain a little bit of traction, I think, of just the effectiveness does seem to diminish over time. And because he's one moment he's okay, and then all of a sudden he decides he just doesn't want to do this anymore, or that it's not right, or is it just that he finally had the courage to do something like we saw with Hauser? But it's leaning a lot more credibility to how you were leaning though, and I think I'm okay with that. I don't think I have any major objections with some of that, because I mean it would make sense that things are less effective over time. Of course, Crosshair is seemingly very different, but then he's had a very different type of trauma and experience with the continued exposure to it, with the intense exposure to it as well.
Right.
But yeah, so I think I'm kind of gravitating towards yours, unless you're going to change course on me here, like usual.
Yep.
Oh boy.
Yep.
All right, where are you at with this then?
No, so maybe.
Maybe.
So I'm trying to think, like, okay, so what's unique about Gregor? And we'll get into maybe Gregor's past here just a little bit, since it's significant, I think. But so between Gregor and Wrecker, okay? And trust me, I've already poked holes in a lot of this myself. But between Gregor and Wrecker, you had two people who, because of impact or something happened, or explosion, impact, whatever it is, their chips were modified in some way, or their chips were regulated in some way. For Wrecker, it was the reverse, right? He was fine, but because he had banged his head and did all that stuff, suddenly the chip was turning on. So it had kind of an inverse effect. Whereas somebody like Gregor, the last time we saw Gregor was in the Clone Wars, and he was one man standing, last man standing kind of thing. And to really to kind of sum up that episode for anybody who doesn't know where Gregor came from, in the Clone Wars, there's an episode where they go into this town, and there is a clone trooper who's working as a waiter at a restaurant, and the droids, and I forget that little shrimp-looking guy's name, or the command, whatever his name was. He was part of the Republic. He recognizes him as a clone trooper and starts calling him that. And Gregor's like, "Well, I don't know what you're talking about. I was never a clone trooper. I work in this restaurant." So you fast forward, they make him realize that he had crash landed there a long time ago, and there was a war, and he had, I guess, amnesia. And they get him to find all his armor, and he decides to help get them off planet because the Empire, or the Separatist army's there. And it ends with him holding the line while the droids and this little shrimp guy get off onto a vessel to escape. And he literally goes up in this massive explosion. And he talks about this a little bit later about, hey, I escaped before. You said, what is it? I survived an explosion.
Been blown up once. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. He makes that comment. And that's exactly what he's talking. He literally, it ends with this big explosion. You think, okay, that clone trooper is dead. There's no way he survived that. He's sacrificed. And it's pretty dramatic, right? He's doing everything he can. and stuff that he didn't even know he could do just moments ago to protect and help these guys get off planet. And you think, okay, that episode ends with a really great sacrifice, right? Somebody who didn't know who they were, and it doesn't matter that he couldn't remember, or that he just got his memory back. Once a soldier, always a soldier. Once a clone trooper, always a clone trooper.
Mhm.
Really cool. And then you get to Rebels, and he's on that ship, which was a huge jump, right? In your mind, going, okay, wait a second. I thought this guy was dead. How did he survive? And not only did he survive Order 66 and everything else, but he's hanging out here vacationing on the desert of Florida, right?
Right.
With Rex and Wolf.
Right.
And
Land fishing boat.
land fishing, yeah. So I mean, and so that whole conversation, that discourse happened when Rebels came out. Everybody was talking about, okay, how did he survive? I thought he was dead, that kind of thing, and we never really got any answers. And here we go. Now we've got somebody like, and I'm coming back to the answer again. Sorry, but now we're back here at the Bad Batch, and he's here again. But I wonder if the explosion that he took did enough where his chip malfunctioned and didn't allow him to be, persuaded by Order 66. So again, the opposite of what happened with Wreckers was turned off and had his got turned on, and maybe his was on and now got turned off because of the damage sustained on here. The holes that I would poke in this is, there are probably a lot of clone troopers who have gone through this and potentially weren't impacted by Order 66, which I think is okay as long as it's not a huge amount, because Rex says, hey, there are others out there like us. And they never really explain how all of these clone troopers potentially, were able to avoid that order or didn't succumb to the order. Maybe it was because they had a lot of trauma during the Clone Wars and the chip wasn't as effective to them. That could be one possible reason. And then the other thing that I was thinking, well, who else sustained a lot of damage here recently? And that would be Crosshair.
Right.
So if Crosshair took a lot of damage with the blast from the engine, are we setting up for, we've been talking about, okay, how is he going to have a redemption arc? Is he going to come back over? It was very interesting. We'll get to there at the very end of the show when we talk about what he does. He turns off the force field and is about to either walk in or take Hunter somewhere. But part of me is wondering, okay, is he here to rescue him? Right? Maybe he's not 100% all in again, but he doesn't like what the Empire's doing. And maybe he's kind of riding the fence there. And because he took that damage, maybe that did something to his inhibitor chip. So there's probably a lot to unpack there, but what do you think?
Wow. Okay. Well, I got to get my notes out. I think some of it though is, are they establishing a pattern and a trend? Right. I think that's the thing I keep coming back to, is if they're trying to establish some sort of trend and pattern of what we're seeing with clones who are not following the order or making decisions to do otherwise, or that maybe don't have as much effectiveness to it. So what is exactly that they're trying to show us? I think that's the part that I'm trying to pick in between all the details as we see it, because and again, I think there's something to it, right? And we thought that Crosshair would already start to have seen a more, with all the trauma that he experienced with the with the engines, you would think that if something were to happen, it would likely have been some sort of reaction relatively quickly. It wouldn't have necessarily been a more gradual, diminishing of the chip's effectiveness. It would have just been, you would have noticed something immediately right away, or he would have been struggling with it a little bit more right away, rather than deterioration. But with Gregor, I mean, yeah, when you get blown up, I mean, all sorts of things could happen. And does he even have the chip anymore? Or did he have it? I mean, when he recovered, did it get taken out, or did it get fried, or whatever it might be? And I mean, Wrecker clearly has, facial damage too from what he had. So does that change anything? We had speculated some about that when the show was first getting kicked off. But yeah, so I'm really looking to see what the trend is that they're trying to show us. And there hasn't been enough of it with enough meat on it to really define clearly what exactly is common across all of these clones that want to lay down their weapons, especially like when we saw it with Hauser. I think that's the one that's really throwing us for a loop, because Hauser had a lot of loyalty to the, to Ryloth and to the Syndulla family. But when he influenced the other clones to set down their arms, what was their position in all of this? How close were they really to the family? It doesn't seem like they would be all that close to them, because it seemed like Hauser was more with them on his own. Yeah. So I think it's I want to, hopefully we get more of this in the last couple of episodes, because I really would like to have at least an idea of what they want us to start drawing conclusions on, even if they're doing a little misdirection, but there should be something that is starting that would allow us to kind of connect those dots and to draw the line that says, okay, that makes a lot of sense when we get there. We were like, okay, that makes sense. Even if I didn't follow it now, when I look back on it, I can definitely see where they were going with it. And it makes sense. It's consistent enough, knowing that not everything's going to be perfect. Right. But they just don't give us enough in between though. And then the times where things like we got more, they don't do anything with it. So we've really got to watch Crosshair closely. I think he's probably the key to all of this, unless we get some sort of actual information from Gregor, which I think would be a good source between him and Rex. That's probably jumping ahead about where we're going next, but
yeah.
So
I think we're going to get
along those lines though.
No, I'm with you. I think we're going to get the answers will probably likely come from Gregor or Rex or even Crosshair. I mean, we don't know what they're going to do to Hunter yet. And there could be something there where, the science is given to us in terms of why some are effective and some aren't. But I'm all kinds of theories right now. So your point's well taken, though. We don't have a lot to go on. I would bet they're going to at least give us that, given they've talked about it enough, they've teased it enough, and if they're going to continue this path of, there's more people out there, and here's now, Wolf, and here's whoever coming up, they're probably going to have to at least give us something to kind of go, okay, he must, they must have fallen into that same trend at some point, and we don't need to know the details, just know that they're there.
Right.
Okay, so they're trying to escape at this point with Gregor. All the lifts are blocked, and so they decide they're going to go ahead and cause a distraction. I think who was it? I think it was Tech tried to go in there. He was going to do something. I forget what he was going to do, but he was trying to, because they were doing inspection, and then he was going to go in there and reroute them to clear the path. Send them somewhere else.
Right, yeah, but he used clone codes, which, of course, would have been useful for him to know before that when he set the alarms off about 2 seconds into it.
Well, it finally came back and bit him, right? Because he never told.
Yeah, that arrogance, right?
He never told anybody, and then until it was already too late, or it already happened, and now someone didn't give him information until it was too late. So, but while he was doing that,
you gave him an out, man.
Oh well. While he's doing all that, Gregor and Hunter are talking about CCs and CT99, and he goes, he recognizes them. They're the Bad Batch, or he calls them, what is it, rejects or whatever.
Defective clones. Yeah.
Yep. He tells him that he was an instructor. We'll get more on that a little bit later. And Gregor then tells him that the TKs are their replacements, that these guys have been brought in to replace the clone troopers. And this is where we got a New Hope sound cue. There's some more music here that's playing in the background, which is great. Right. This is where we go into that whole fighting sequence. They're, the CTs show up and they start running. Sorry, not CTs, but the stormtroopers show up, and we get the first of a number of different battles that are kind of going on in the hallways. And eventually they kind of make their way. Well, this is what we talked about. They had the stun guns, and they were using those. I forget who it was. I don't know if it was Dante or somebody in the chat had mentioned that it shoots a wider bolt.
Yeah. Right.
And so it's more of an area of effect kind of. If you have a better chance of hitting something. It's like scatter shot, right? Like it's like using a shotgun rather than using, a 9mm or something, or that's a handgun to a shotgun.
And that's that was the discussion we had in Discord, where it's got a broader ring, and also they seem to be way more effective. If you shoot someone with a blaster, you may not take them out. You might wound them and slow them down, but you're incapacitating someone with these stuns for the most part. Right. And we had a couple of examples of where that's not the case, but they seem still to be very effective with it. I think the other thing we did get from Gregor, though, before we get too far past it, is we did get the whole line about they're not as skilled, because they were giving him a hard time. We thought you trained these guys, and he's like, well, I didn't teach them everything I know. Mm-hmm. But they're not as skilled, but there's just tons of them, and everybody's enlisting. So clearly everyone is on board, or many people are on board with the Empire, and they're very excited to contribute. And again, it's one of those of like, well, how could they be so stupid? No, it's like, why not? You had the Republic, and the Republic won the war. You're showing this enthusiasm for supporting this new world that you're building, together. And you've got this, you just got this aura, I guess, to you, where people are super excited, or they're just conscripting everyone.
Yeah.
Conscripting volunteers.
Conscripting volunteers. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Dante, of course. Yeah. We had another conversation about why Wrecker just starts unloading out there, which made a lot more sense too.
Yeah. I mean, it was just a narrow path, a narrow thing there. So, okay. So let's see. This is where we get that whole I escape before, and, and so we know he did get out at some point. They're having this conversation as they're kind of running through these.
Of course, Tex says, well, you got captured. He said, after I escaped, though.
Yeah, which is true. Technically, he did.
It's great.
We get some more
you can't get
background.
Captured if you don't escape.
That's right. One leads to the other. Again, as they're kind of fighting their way through all of this, which is great stuff. I mean, I'm not trying to, dismiss.
We're not going to accurately describe it all. So just go watch it if you haven't already.
Yep. But some more tidbits that we got out of there. The clones are soldiers of a republic that no longer exists. He mentions that. I think that line was echoed by somebody else, no pun intended, earlier on. I forget who it was. Someone had said that, something along the same lines. And that they're not very skilled, but this is more of a quantity over quality for the Empire. And I know a lot of people are saying, oh, look what they're doing. They're going for quantity over quality, but that's what they did, right? That's what Palpatine's always done. He did it with the Separatist army. That was his whole thing. He was trying to get you overpower them with all these meaningless droids that are just, they fall at the wayside because they're cheap. But if you get enough of them in there, they can make a difference. And so it's not anything different. He's just replacing the Separatist droids now with inscripted soldiers and sending them off as fodder. So he's just he's zerging them, for a more modern term that's used.
Yep. Endless supply, like Gregor says.
Yep. Endless supply of people, and promise them all kinds of benefits and wealth and everything, all the stuff that that one trooper said earlier on the season, right? He kind of gave all the reasons as to why this was a better gig for him than the Republic, and what the Republic didn't do for them that the Empire was doing. That was kind of signaling that, hey, this is quite a nice little package here. So maybe I should take my chances and join and die immediately. There was let's talk about Scorch, because he does. I'm pretty sure that's him, even if they don't explicitly say it. It looks like him, and that leads. And so, for anyone's wondering, Scorch was, and Jonesy, correct me if I'm wrong because you're better at this than I am, but was he not one of the clone commandos from the video game first, who then made his way in? Made his way into the Clone Wars seasons.
Yeah, so he was part of Delta. Yeah, he was part of Delta Squad, which was in the video game, and then in the books later on, the Republic Commando books, they were following, I believe, it was Omega Squad. Although they did interact with Delta Squad, I think, at one point. But yeah, Scorch was I believe he was the demolitions expert, though, wasn't he? I remember right?
No, I don't remember from the game, and I'm trying to think in the episode where he was in, but. I think the question, though, is, and I know we had some conversation about this on Discord, was whether or not we were going to see other members from Delta Squad, or was Delta Squad going to become, I don't know, Crosshair's right-hand group now, or does he run around with those guys? But I don't know. I don't buy into that. I mean, it'd be cool if they did, but I don't think they need to go there right now. Maybe they table that for season 2 if they want to, but they're pretty lean right now.
Well, I mean, they proved their point, though. I mean, he was totally awesome, right? And he could take a bunch of shots. As soon as of course he jumped across the lift, not the elevator, but the lift, Albert, just like it's a torch, not a flashlight.
Yeah, the lift.
So he got around, and Gregor took, 2 shots, and I had to slow it down to see exactly where he got shot. So the armor took 1, and then there was another one right on the edge of where the armor was, because the commando coming down a little bit further, like almost like a I don't know, call them wife beaters. What do they call them? The t-shirts,
muscle shirts.
Yeah, they're like the muscle shirts or whatever, tank tops type of things. But yeah, so he did take a shot to where he was actually, took it in the chest there. So it was more than just taking on the armor, but it did lead to credibility that the armor was a lot stronger, a lot better. But Scorch, man, he took a beating too, but he was giving it, man. He gave it really good, and it took him like 4 or 5 stun bolts.
Yeah, it was at least 3 that I counted, but yeah, it wasn't just 1. So that speaks to, his hardiness as well as the armor itself.
Mhm.
Yeah, and he finally kind of fizzled out there and short circuited when he fell over, which was kind of cool to see. But I don't know, it would be cool to see them back again at some point if that was what they wanted to do. But
Yeah, I mean, I'll save everyone the Jonesy speech about where I think Republic Commandos and all that just should come back. But
yep, he's
love
just
that
waiting,
stuff.
man. He's got to GoFundMe. We'll throw the link in the show notes for if you want to.
There's a lot of
help-
other things
help
we can
support
fund me,
it.
but I don't know about that one.
Okay, so quickly over to the Havoc Marauder, and Omega's worried. Wrecker's sitting there lounging.
No, he's preparing, man.
Yeah,
He's the calm before the storm, or however he put it. The
he said something about like,
reach. He was charging up before he charges in.
charging up before he charges in. Yeah,
That's right.
I'm gonna use
Actually,
that.
I thought it was pretty clever. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, Wrecker says, "Nah, everything's fine." I'm sure. What could be possibly going wrong? And then they cut over to like just tons of blaster bolts happening, in the midst of these corridors as they're having this big gunfight. They throw out that smoke grenade. This is where Scorch jumps on the lift. It's in this moment here and shoots. And the fact that Gregor took those 2 shots, I thought was actually really surprised. I think Tech took one as well because he
got
something
hit.
on his shoulder or something.
I thought he got punched or hit, knocked out, or knocked aside.
Okay.
But he did take he took
something happened to him, but you can see him there. He's holding his shoulder at some point there. They run down the corridor and they close the blast doors. And again, Star Wars magic shoots the panel. It closes it. It can't be opened.
Shot with a laser, not a stun bolt, though. So they do know.
Yeah.
They do know where the switch is at.
Exactly. That is a conscious decision for some reason. This is where Hunter asks Gregor how he's feeling. He makes that comment about, "This is nothing. I got blown up once and survived." So, this was that whole conversation about, so how did he survive? But we don't need to know that. So the plan at this point is they're going to take the reactor core exhaust area system, whatever, up halfway to the mountain and then jump out. They're going to get the ship over there. And again, faulty designs by the Empire. Like, it seems like every time they've got a really major, like, systemic issue with exhaust ports in the Imperial designs and plans. So I know our buddy Josh over at Film Appraisers is an architect. So, hey, Josh, if you're listening, there's probably good work there you could find because they need somebody that knows how to plug up the holes.
Well, good news is if someone shot a torpedo in this one, it probably wouldn't have the chain reaction that the Death Star did, though.
Yeah.
So they at least started off on firmer footing.
Yeah. They jump into the vents, which are conveniently.
This looked more like The Fugitive than anything else.
Oh,
I don't know if we were talking about movies that reference like it. This felt like The Fugitive.
Yep. At one point, I was waiting for somebody or one of them just to go, "I don't care," with hands up in the air, kind of thing.
I didn't do it. I don't care.
I don't care. Tuan, curse you, Galen Urso. Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe it was Urso that designed this one. Like, that's kind of his signature design, right? He puts open exhaust ports for.
Well, no, but Urso's
I know,
okay with the Empire at this point.
True, he is.
But this is all real, man. Don't take this away from me.
All right. They're in the vents, which are conveniently the right height for them to kind of walk standing up. They don't have to crawl around these things. And we get some more background. Gregor explains that he was brought in to teach the TKs along with the other CTs until he realized that he wanted out. Says the Empire doesn't take to desertion. Then Hunter calls Wrecker and Omega for the evac. So they jump in their ship. She's super excited because she's being called. There's a call to action here. And I noticed the drop ships took off, and like there was at least 4 or 5 drop ships. But and I know there's drop ships at the very end, but I don't know. I was wondering where they were going because there was certainly the fighters, and then they had the drop ships themselves. But they don't ever really explain it until we get to see some of them at the very end. But who knows? Maybe they were just all leaving at the same time, just happened to be happenstance. But Omega gets to fly, so that was kind of cool to see her taking control of the ship. And I mean, she had a really simple job: just pull it around and hold it. Right? It's kind of like when you tell your teenage kid, just pull it in the driveway and then put it in park, kind of thing. Don't want to give them too much.
I'd give her a little more credibility than that.
Well, she did great. Flew it in. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from her. All I'm saying is
she had to take it in and she had to not bang into the mountain.
True.
I mean, come on. Give her something, man.
Okay, fine. She did awesome.
Gosh, great job, Omega.
Great job,
I'm proud of you.
Omega. I am too. I really am. I just love the fact she got to fly, especially given
Yeah.
she had that whole moment with Hera a couple episodes ago.
Mhm.
And so Tech and Gregor jump in, and then the fighters come in there, so they've got to get away from there. This is where she says she can't hold it anymore. Tech says that'll do. He takes over, and then they get out of there. And from here on out, man, all these sequences are just the timing of the sequences and the editing here is
Mhm.
just great stuff. Like it felt like a dang Star Wars movie, which was awesome.
Right.
And I know it should, but it really did, and I was pretty happy with it.
Oh, but then we get to the part of the episode where a lot of people were cheering.
We're Gonky,
Gonky saves the day.
yeah, because I mean, during the aerial fight, they lost their shields, they started losing power, very reminiscent of the pod race there when he was losing power there. But yeah,
Well,
and then Gonky,
I think you called it a couple of episodes ago. Like, why she keeps working on Gonky?
I think
He's going to save the day at some point,
Yep,
right? Yeah.
yep,
So there you
sure
go.
enough. So yeah, she fixed him up enough to where he was able to be effective. Although he didn't do it. I mean, he ran over there, but I mean, he can't plug in. So Omega grabbed the thing and plugged it in for him. But
Whatever. He's
I mean, he doesn't have
power
hands,
droid.
so
He got true. He needs a helping hand.
he needs a helping hand. So he did the right thing by heading over there and making it easier, so they didn't have to carry him out there. But yeah, he plugs in, gives him power, very dramatic, and it was cool because when she plugs him in, the music that's played is not anything from the original Star Wars. It's actually the theme from the Bad Batch, which I thought was significant because I think for me it signaled, okay, he's a member of the team, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that dramatic tone that play that whole piece was played there, which I thought was great. So it was good. I mean, I'm a big Gonky fan as well. So of course he gets a little fried. Doesn't it? Is this episode or was it one before?
No, he gets zapped when they take another shot.
Yeah. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm sure he'll live. He's a droid. They'll fix him up, I'm sure. But he does take one, AK, like just like R2 did, and all kinds of other droids have done in the past. Wrecker takes out the final two ships in that first wave, and so they're able to kind of circle around again. And they pick up, who was the last one in there? Was it
Echo and Hunter? Yeah.
Yeah. So Echo jumps in, and then Echo falls. He doesn't make it because the other ships are coming.
Hunter.
They got to get up. I'm sorry, Hunter falls.
Yeah,
Which was
Echo
quite a big of a fall.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was. I mean, they were halfway up a mountain, like they said before.
Mm-hmm.
So how he was able to, I mean, so Hunter was jumping and he was on there. He just couldn't get any purchase on the stairs on the ship and just slid off. But yeah, man, that's a long way down.
It was. And I know people are
His
like,
knife
what's that?
Go ahead. Knife wouldn't work in the rock. I mean, I don't know why that wouldn't work in the rocks.
Well, I mean, I think it's not about, not that I've fallen, but I mean, if you're falling, anything you can do to slow the momentum is all he was trying to do. I mean, he had some natural stoppings from the branches as he was hitting those down, right? That kind of crushes the fall a little bit there, slows the fall somewhat. But yeah, that knife thing was really just to kind of slow down the momentum as much as he could. So I don't know. It's a cartoon. He survived. It's fine. And then, so yeah, we kind of saw this coming, right? I think this is where Gonky falls down, and then the dropships come in. And Tech is saying, look, we've already taken too much damage. We can't take another hit. The minute he said that, you're thinking, okay, well, Hunter, I guess you're going to get captured because this is likely where it's going to go, given there's only 2 minutes or 3 minutes left in the episode. And yeah, sure enough, he tells them they need to leave. They call and say, look, we need to come back for you. He says, no, negative, the odds. Or I think it was Tech. It says the odds of escape are not in your favor. Because Tech doesn't want to leave him, right? He thinks if he leaves him there, bad things are going to happen. And right when he says that line, I don't know what it is, but when he says negative, the odds of escape are not in your favor, there's a quick cut to that ship, the Havoc Marauder coming across from the right to the left of the screen, and it kicks in the engines, and the two fighters that are chasing them come right in after that. That is a scene. They've used that so many times in Star Wars, and it's been used a lot in it was used in The Rise of Skywalker, and it was used in The Last Jedi a few times, but I don't know if anybody's ever called it for what it is or given it a name, but it is used in Star Wars quite a bit. And I think it started with the original, with episode 4. But it's something that stood out to me. So if you go back and watch it, you'll know what I'm talking about, but it's something it's a kind of a signature scene signature move that's used in Star Wars quite a bit. So kudos to them for doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Good call.
Yeah, and yeah, he makes the call. They head out in hyperspace, and they kind of leave him there. He's
Yeah.
gonna
We
get captured.
I don't know if we called it specifically, but we were definitely knew this is where it was headed, that they were going to have to get separated. And it makes a lot of sense for Hunter or Omega to be one of the two that gets separated from others. And at this point, it makes a lot more sense for it to be Hunter. Really, Omega's importance, I think, from really any of the parties' perspectives is really very, very low at this point. Right. And so I think the only one who would have had any kind of emotional impact would have been Hunter. He's the only one who made a lot of sense at this point. We got a very emotional Omega too, because she's over there, basically beating on Wrecker, trying to tell. I don't know why he's telling him to turn around. He's not flying the ship. So,
Well, I
but
think it. Yeah, I got.
I mean, she was appealing to him, right? Because he's usually the
Yes.
not the voice of reason, but the emotional one who's more willing to be susceptible to it than Echo or Tech would. But you could tell that Tech and Echo didn't want to either. They looked at each other and they were very hesitant to do it. But then an order's an order, and plus they knew there was no way that any of them would have survived this other if they would have tried to go back after him.
Right.
I mean, they had a whole dozen or so ships coming after him, and some of the scenery when we looked up, when Hunter looks up and sees the ships flying by, it was just another one of those kind of reminds you of Return of the Jedi at the end when they're celebrating and you get the ships kind of zooming by at top. But it was pretty emotional from Omega. I mean, clearly she's very, very upset with this, and rightfully so. Her brother or father, whatever you want to call him these days, and you don't leave anyone behind, right? But sometimes that's your only option.
Yep, live to fight.
Why didn't they shoot him on sight though? That's the part I don't understand. Do you think that Crosshair gave them an order not to? Because I mean, they've got the gunships and everything else down there. They've got 2 or 3 squads or so. They had at least 2 squads. They had 2 commanders there, 2 commandos. But why do you think they shot to kill? I mean, they were trying to kill him otherwise.
Well, that's a good question. I would say I would need to go back and look at it, but the way I remember it is, I mean, he was pretty much down, if not out, when he first landed. So I don't know. You would have to think it was because, I mean, prior to this, they were trying. I mean, it was shoot to kill in the hallways, And so, what changed from that moment to now? Other than
he only had a knife, I guess, at this point.
True. I mean, well, yeah.
You don't bring a knife to a gunfight.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, maybe. I think it's giving the Empire too much credit because I don't think they would have cared at this point. But I think the only logical is this or choice or reason is because someone told them not to do it for whatever. Maybe they want to capture, which kind of plays into the whole thing, right? When he says I was expecting the rest of the group, not just you, but you'll do or whatever. I do want to. There was something here. Sorry, because I'm an '80s guy. Rob said it looked like Rambo in the first Blood movie. So this is when, and I think I know what he's talking about. When Hunter, and I hadn't thought about this, when Hunter was falling down, there's a scene I think in Rambo First Blood where he jumps off like a cliff or whatever it is because he's trying to get away. He has no other way to do it, and he does the same thing. He hits a bunch of stuff on the way down. Luckily, lands in the water, and he's kind of beat up from that, and he skimpers away and ends up that kind of beat up and damaged. But yeah, it's actually very similar because that's when we were in the headband and all. So good call on that one. All right, so
it's 80 movies Orama going on here.
Hey, well, it's been more than just 80s movies. Yep, Rob says correct. The so they eventually they take off in the hyperspace. We cut over to Camino, which I think is meant to be told. I think these are both happening simultaneously, but I did wonder if like there was time that passed before we get to the next scene of, which is well, maybe not. No, because he's already in bars in the next scene. So, but either way, we get over to Camino, which I thought it's a pretty chilling scene, right? With Rampart, saying that he just found out that Lama Su wasn't giving his full cooperation. He's kind of playing dumb here. He knows exactly what's happened. And, when Lama Su says, no, I've been doing everything he asked me to. He says, well, we found out your, chief medical officer, scientist, was trying to get medical personnel off planet, trying to escape. And so this was part of that whole plan. Hey, let's get everybody out of here that we need to take, get out of Dodge because things are getting hot and heavy here. And Lama Su quickly tries to say, hey, yeah, I got it. Let me take care of this. Sorry. I'll deal with her. I'll put my fist down. And no, the Empire's not having any part of that, right? The Empire says that he calls him a politician and says that his services are no longer needed. And that scene ends. He says they have a need for Nala Se. And we'll talk about that in the we can talk about the Patreon episode.
Yep.
About that one, but we're going to talk more about not where that's going to go here in our Patreon exclusive episode. But there's that scene ends with him kind of if you look at Rampart, he looks over to one of the troopers and just kind of nods, like gives him the go ahead now. As he's walking out,
Mhm.
they walk in, blasters pulled or rifles pulled, and the door closes, and we don't hear blaster bolts. But I
Right.
think some people have been kind of going back and forth. I'm of the opinion he's dead, like they killed him. I don't. I don't think they would just. I don't think they had to give you the sound effect for it to confirm it. But they really, if you think
Right.
about it, they have no use for him at all at this point, right?
Right.
So, but what are your thoughts? Do you think he lives or any other? And if so, why would they even keep him around?
Nope. I think he's dead. I don't think there's no
He's
use
dead,
for him
Jim.
at this point. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
dead, Jim. Yep.
He is very, very dead in my book as well. The okay, and then we finally get back over to Darrow, or Darrow. Is it Darrow? Darrow? I
Darrow.
almost
Yep.
called it Dora, but we get the music's playing. This is I call it the crosshair thing, but it's got that real like industrial tech sound that kind of
Mhm.
came in with this one.
Right.
But we get that playing immediately, and Crosshair is walking up to Hunter, who's behind bars, and this is where Hunter says, I'd figured you show up." Um, and Crosshair turns off the force field on that note. So before we go any further, I kind of want your thoughts, any speculation as to why he's turning off the force field. I can only think it's either one. I mean, either he's going in to do something, or he's taking them out to do something, because they seem like they're just fine. They could talk between the force field just fine. So why would he turn it off?
I I don't know. That was a good question. I mean, sometimes you do it just to get a little more personal because he also took the helmet off. He didn't need to take the helmet off either, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could do it to make it more personal. I don't think he's worried about him taking a shot at him because he can always just punch it and go. But I believe they're about to go somewhere, though. I mean, he's going to take him somewhere. I mean, his language at least suggests it, right? You know, he'll do. He wanted the whole squad, but he'll do. And so clearly that he has an idea for something. And we'll have to see what that might be, whether that's a interrogation or whether it's something else. But I think at this point, rather than, beyond being a nuisance and I guess being a bit of a threat, what else would they really want from the Bad Batch except just to kill them off? You know, so why keep them if they were anything else? And I guess Rampart is on Camino. He's not here on Darrow. Of course, Crosshair was on Camino and I was on Darrow. So I don't know if Rampart, I'm assuming Rampart stayed or he's still there overseeing that operation. But I'm assuming, yeah, I mean, he's got to be going somewhere. I don't know quite what I want to believe yet because I don't, because if there's a second season, I don't see them resolving this at all. Right. I think this is where we'll probably get hopefully we'll have a very good idea after next week's episode. But if there's going to be a second season, they're going to have something of a cliffhanger, I would think. Do you think that's reasonable? I mean, that hasn't really been a thing, I guess, with all of the different series between seasons. Because they didn't do that with Rebels either, did they?
They did. Well, I mean, so I think we talked about this in an episode this season, this year. Filoni has a way of ending a season with a cliffhanger, but if you really wanted to call it resolved,
Yeah.
I mean, there's enough there to go, okay, we ended it, and we at least laid enough stuff that if we wanted to pick it up, we certainly could.
Right.
I don't
There's
think it's
more
going to be
story.
like,
Yeah, there's more story, but you don't necessarily have to have it if you don't get there, right?
exactly. Yeah, and
Right.
I have my gut tells me that's probably where they're going to go with this. Although that said, I mean, they could have, they don't make these decisions, like they're not going to make a decision about season 2 tomorrow. They've probably already made the decision 3-4 months ago, and they're just waiting at this point to announce it, right? So I don't think what's going to happen is going to have any kind of, it's not going to be an indicator of whether or not, or whether there is going to be a second season. So, I'm with you too. I think he's going to take him somewhere. Hopefully it's to rescue him in some way, but it doesn't. Based on the tone of his voice, if he's going to do it, he's going to do it, and he's reluctantly doing it. Right? He's kind of, like I said, he's kind of on the fence, maybe half in, half out. it would have to be solely on him not agreeing with the direction the Empire is going. Like, I don't like you guys because of the chip, and that's still affecting me. But at the same time, I know enough where I can at least acknowledge that the Empire is not any good for whatever reason, and I'm going to kind of help you out at this point. I think it's too early. I still want the redemption arc. Still want the liberation of the clone troopers. Although that feels like that's starting to fade a little bit now. I think the revelations of them offboarding the kids and shutting down production of the clones and designating the clone troopers as clone commandos as part of War-Mantle and likely replacing those clone troopers with or clone commandos with regular inscripted
Right.
soldiers. That all kind of points to maybe there's not a liberation going to happen, right? It still could happen. I'm not saying it can't, but that's a lot of clones, and I don't think it doesn't feel like we're going to head into a Clone Wars 2 kind of thing or Clone Army 2.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like they're all battling each other. I don't think we're going there based on at least this episode, but who knows? We'll see. There's still at least 60 minutes of story to be told here this season. So
Yeah, and I think that doesn't make a lot of sense in this era and this time frame at the very least.
no,
I think
no.
that I think what we want though, so what we want, I think what we need to have, and I think what we're going to get is that we're going to have dialogue one on one between Hunter and Crosshair,
Yeah.
which is long
We need
overdue.
it.
There's been a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of we need it. There's been a lot of tension for a while. There's been a lot of uncertainty as to exactly what Hunter's real feelings are about this, or his opinion, or what he wants to say to Crosshair. And again, we don't really know what's going on with Crosshair because he's been struggling with this for a while, right? Or he did, at least before he got fried in the brain.
Yep.
So I think that's the thing and that's the part we really should look forward to, rather than, I'm more interested in that part than the actual resolution of it, right? Because I just want to know what is going on in their heads when they're around each other, when they're thinking about what the other one is doing, and when they're trying to escape or whatever it might be. Yeah, that's the part that I think is always the most interesting part. Not necessarily how it ends, but what's the process to get there, and what's the journey to get there. And I think the writing has been so good in the show that I believe we should have high expectations as to what that dialogue should look like starting next week.
Yeah, it would be great if they just opened with that. I mean, come out of
Just
black,
jump right into it.
show
Yeah.
a red logo, whatever you do to make it special, and just jump right into them.
That's the
having
real
that.
speculation.
I know.
That's
Yeah.
what are they going to do? Because they always do something special for the actual closing and opening sequences for the logo.
Yep. I want it red. They tend to do that pretty often.
Maybe it'll rust. Well, it's already kind of red because it was red and then it burned into what we have. So now it could just rust out and fall apart.
So before we get into
Lucasfilm, if you need help, give me a call. I know how
right
to do
there.
it. I've got an After Effects program. I'll do it.
He's really cheap too.
Pretty much.
No, yeah, I'm not. No offense. I'm just
So many different ways.
Yeah, in so many different ways. I do. Before we get into the final questions, Rob brought this up, and I do want to touch on it because I've seen some people talking about it on Twitter. But he says, I think the Empire wants to reactivate the chip, not knowing it is gone. I actually like this theory a lot. Like, I like the fact that at least in this moment, Crosshair's idea when he says, "I was expecting the whole group, but you'll do," is like, okay, I'll start with you. We're going to put you in that machine and reactivate the chip. I would love to see them try that after they've had their conversation or whatever, and it not work. And where does that go? What do they do with Hunter at that point? Because now they've got somebody who's an actual armed weapon kind of person, and they don't want him around. Unless they're going to use him for cloning, they have no use. It would make sense for them to keep him and the rest of the Clone Force and Clone Force 99 if the intent was to convert them back over to the Empire and use them as special forces for whatever the Empire needs to do, which I think is kind of what they were alluding to or kind of hinting at. But it's going to be a different story. I've seen other people talk about, they're going to put a chip back in his head, which I don't think I like the theory, I like the thought of it, no pun intended, but I don't think that's how the chips work. Like it feels like that whole thing has got to be done when they're really young and at a certain age, and too old for the training, too old for the chip. I don't know. I just doesn't feel like that's.
Yeah, it's dangerous enough to take it out. I agree with you. Putting it back in. The other question I have about that is, or to kind of challenge it a bit, is even when they were trying to reactivate or reinforce it with Crosshair, didn't they have to identify where it was and isolate it before they could do the procedure? I thought they still had to be able to see it and kind of focus in on it, though. I know
Either
they did
way,
when they were trying to pull him out, but I just thought they had to do that with the amplification of it as well.
they might have. They might have. I think either way, it's not. They don't need to go through the. I don't need to have the scene of him sitting there and they're doing it and it doesn't work. I want them to. I want them to be an acknowledgement of. Wait a second, we're looking for the chip. It's not there. What's going on? And they question that, or they just, figure
Right.
out, oh, he must have had it removed, or this clone had his chip removed, or somebody went in there and removed the chip. Right. That's all I want. They don't need to go through the whole thing there.
Right.
For me, but it is an interesting prospect too that would be something that they're wanting to do with Clone Force 99, because I am struggling right now, like you, to understand where this is going to go, especially with this episode and what they want from Clone Force 99 at this point, other than to convert them back over.
Yep.
But okay, so on that,
want to do the lightning round for questions and predictions?
Yeah, sure. Let's do this quickly here. So where the Bad Batch going next?
See Rex. I got to go find Rex. Yeah, I think that's pretty much given.
Yep, I would say so too. That's their only lead at this point, and but they do have Sid out there. So do you think Sid will join them at some point in the next 2 episodes?
No, I don't know that. We haven't been giving any kind of indication otherwise to this point that she wants to go out on one of their little adventures. So I don't have any reason to expect that they would all of a sudden sync up with Sid and do that. How about you?
I think they're going to need her help at some point. I don't know to what extent. Rex knows her. They've got their relationship. She's certainly somebody. If she doesn't go to, I was all in way earlier on when we first were introduced to her, about her going and being, the Maz Kanata on a jetpack running around fighting people. I think they've demonstrated that she has that skill set. I don't know that they need her for that. I think it might be enough for them to say, look, Sid's got contacts. We need something. Let's work through her. And so that she's a part of the group. Because, she does feel like she is part of the Bad Batch, and, she's kind of the, not part of the core team, but she is helping them. Right. So it would be kind of sad if they didn't need her help or didn't lean on her for one thing. And to see, and again, to go back to what we said with her, I want her to see her do it because she wants to do it, not because there's anything for her to gain from this, but because she's now they've earned her trust because they've helped her out, and especially she's doing it for Omega. I think that part would resonate really well with a lot of folks.
Well, and not necessarily trust, but they've earned her respect to be able to do that, and that she wants to contribute in some way.
Yep.
Knowing that Hunter's really not that bad of a guy.
Yeah.
Because she's really got secretly a crush because he's dark and broody.
Yes, that's probably it.
Love.
So Rob says we still need to see Wolf, but that kind of segues into the next question: is are we going to see any more cameos this season from previous characters? And there's a lot of characters, because if you think about it, it could be anybody from the Bad Batch, it could be Vader, it could be Tarkin, Ahsoka. You name it. The list goes on and on. Anybody from the Rebellion earlier on. The Saw Gerrera come back into this since they kind of teased him out earlier on in the season. But what are you thinking here?
Well, I think we definitely get Rex. I think that's a given where we're going. I think Saw's a chance. I think Vader is actually a fairly real chance too, but they've really made this all outside of that. I think we might see Tarkin come back. I don't know if that qualifies as a cameo anymore. I think we're largely talking about what's coming from Clone Wars or something like that. But we don't need them. I think we don't need any more cameos. I think, and I'm trying to think who makes sense in order to pull into this. And I think with Wolf in particular, I think that's another backstory, and that's not something that I think we've got enough time to really explore here. I know we did it with one episode with Gregor, but I don't know that we chew up a whole nother episode to do it again with Wolf, and then we bring the whole band together right away. If there's a season 2, we've got time to do it in season 2 with Wolf, and I don't think we need to rush into a lot of that stuff. But again, it kind of depends on who Rex is hanging with these days, anyway. Yeah. Right. So whoever his merry little band is, and have him and Ahsoka completely separated, and what is he up to that he's in such a rush when he gave him these orders in the first place, or really the request, not an order.
Yeah, and it could be, Wolf could already be rescued. Like, we may not even get the story. They get there where Rex is at, and suddenly there's Wolf and a number of other clone troopers that have been rescued, that have defected or for whatever reason. So that's a very good possibility.
The other question, I guess, is do we get more Hauser? Do we somehow come across Hauser and he works back into these last 2 episodes? I think that's probably more likely than a Wolf. I think at this point, unless Wolf's already part of the group.
Right.
But Hauser might be an interesting one to go back and revisit.
I'm with you though on all of that. I think wherever Rex is, it feels like Ahsoka is as well.
She's probably not
Although
far away. Yeah.
but they're not. She's not far away. Yeah. Um, but when we see them together in Rebels, right? They have that kind of moment. So
Yeah.
yeah,
We don't
it's
want to
possible,
cheapen that. I mean,
exactly. Yeah. So that'd be hard to say.
yeah.
I mean, there are other people too, and I say cameos. It could be somebody they've never shown, but it could be something like the Martez sisters, who, they were a part of this as well, and they are definitely tied to Rex. I think they're going to be there because if they're going to Rex, they're probably going to be the Martez sisters. So I mean, think about it. When we're setting this up to be the very similar to Rebels, where they had to go rescue Kanan. Was it
Mhm.
end of season 1?
Yeah.
I think it was end of season 1 where he was captured, and they had a kind of lean on everybody and all the things that had happened that season to kind of help them go in and rescue Kanan. Very similar here, and I'd be fine with it. I'm totally cool with it. But there's an opportunity, I think, for them to kind of pull out a lot of the characters and kind of put more weight behind some of the stories that people felt like didn't have to be there, and give them more of a purpose, that kind of helps build to this big climactic uh, freeing of Hunter, if that's where it
Mhm.
ends. I don't know that it's going to end there too. So
I don't. Yeah, I have a funny feeling it's not going to either.
yeah, a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's going to end with Hunter getting rescued," and it just doesn't feel powerful enough, right? Like he was just, I mean, yes, he got captured, significant, very sad, yes. However, I don't think that's enough. Like that's not what filming does. There's usually something bigger in the works with all of this, and so I wouldn't be surprised is if they rescue him by the end of this episode, and there's something more larger looming in that final third episode that needs to be resolved, and that ends with an even bigger cliffhanger.
Yeah, they haven't really let these kidnappings linger for very long, have they?
Mm-mm.
We got Omega back pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, and you mentioned Hauser out there, but I would like to see a Vader. I would like to see a Tarkin. I think it's important to, more than
It
just
reminds
oh,
you. Yeah, reminds you of the Empire at large. Yeah.
exactly, yeah, right. Because we saw them at the end of Sith, Revenge of the Sith, and I'd like to see them chime in, or let's show Tarkin pulling strings and talking to us, or maybe like a Thrawn. I mean, why wouldn't he be a part of all of this at this point?
I don't. He's not in here yet, though. I don't think.
No. Oh well. I mean, I don't know.
Not
I don't
yet.
know where he is at all, because I know he was. I mean, he's an admiral. Well, we don't have the story first off in canon because they're
Right.
still telling all that. But
Yeah.
he was an admiral by the time he comes into Rebels. So where was he during that time? I mean, he had to have been in the fleet, moving his way up through the ranks at some point, right?
Mhm.
So maybe it is too soon though. Maybe they're saving him for like a season 2 or season 3.
Right.
Who knows? But
But it's possible we could get an order from Palpatine that gives it to Tarkin about what to do with the Kaminoans. Of course, that order sounds like it's already been given, but that's another stretch. We could maybe get an Emperor sighting. Again, some of these things don't really make a whole lot of sense except to bring you back. And again,
Right.
we haven't really spent a whole lot of time away from the Bad Batch's perspective. We did a little bit on Ryloth. We have a little with Camino. Really, a lot of it's been from the perspective of the Bad Batch itself. So getting too far away from that when you get into a Vader or Palpatine, unless they're around, but Palpatine will never be around. But a Vader or a Tarkin seem reasonable that they could at least be on the table. But I think that's more of a very last episode of the season, or the cliffhanger going into the last, end of next week's episode.
Mm-hmm. The next question that we've got is going to be covered in our Patreon episode, and it's what does the Empire want with Nala Se? And so I think this is a good opportunity to show. This is the title page, and I did not come up with this one. As cheesy as this sounds, this was Jonesy, so he has stepped it up. He is mastering his own ways, but we're calling the episode "Ramparting Waves." So thank you, Jonesy. That was very, very good.
You're very welcome. Yeah, and the message I sent to Albert when I sent it to him was, "What have you done to me?"
I love it.
But,
It's
but I love the image we got of Lama Su here. He's just like, what? What'd you say?
Yeah, very shocked look. But that will be covering that. So the question of what does the Empire want with Nala Se, we'll certainly tackle that and a lot more there. But here's the next question. So how likely do you think clone liberation will be at this point? How likely is I don't know why I did that twice, but how likely is a clone liberation at this point?
Did you clone the text.
Well, I think I was copying and pasting it, and I just probably
That's cloning.
head down. Oh, that's true. I already
God,
said though. I know
I'm trying to
you're
come
throwing me
up to your
bones
game.
here.
I know, right? You're not even giving me an opportunity to.
I was editing that question.
Okay, so no, clone liberation is not likely to happen at this point, at least based on where we're at with the story. And again, I think where the really good stories seem to be really good is when you keep it into a really tight group and a tight and right now we've got a very controlled group of people where you can really lean on the emotional aspect of that and get really good storytelling and keeping the cast small and bring in the characters that actually have meaning and value to it, like a Rex, right?
Mm-hmm.
That make a lot of sense to be there. So clone liberation at this point, no. Might we see signs of it though, or the seeds of that needing to happen if there were season 2? I could see season 2 being dedicated to something like that. But I think for it all to happen in a couple of episodes is probably a bit rushed. But maybe we see the beginnings of it. I think that's still plausible.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the episode lengths. If they stick to 30 minutes, I don't think there's enough time to start all that and really kind of end it the right way. But I think you're right. Maybe they do start.
We've started, right? I mean, we've started, right? We just don't have a plan of how they're going to do it, and it's not really something that they're actively doing in droves.
Unless again, really far fetched, I think at this point. But if he let him out and he's going to tell him, "Hey, look," and I want to give credit to Tuan because Tuan brought up a good point. What if Hunter goes through that process of the chip inhibitor getting, redone on him, or they think it's going to happen and thinking it's working, but he's playing it. What am I trying to say? Maybe Crosshair tells him, look, we need to get out of here. We need to free all the clones. We need to take down the Empire. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to put you in the machine. You act like it's infecting you so that we'll go around, start saying good soldiers follow orders. And then we'll come up with a plan to take down the Empire, call in Rex and call in everybody else, get these other troopers out of here, get all the clone commandos and get them converted so that we can get out and take, whatever. Maybe that's part of the plan. And that would be a liberation. It wouldn't be every one of them, but at least have some control over the ones that are, within their immediate vicinity or grasp or they're connected to. So, okay.
Another question we didn't ask is how did Gregor get in contact with Rex? Maybe that'll be the big question of the week.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
Actually, I think that is question of the week, actually. Dang it, I spoiled it. I think that is, guy. I think it is, yeah.
I saw you made the title card on it, so I saw it. Yeah, I don't know.
You would think I know my own work better.
Yeah, right. It is a good question. I mean, and I guess in the grand scheme of things, it probably doesn't matter, but it is always fun to speculate and try to come up with the reasons as to why. Okay, last one, because we got to get out of here. We're almost coming on 2 hours.
Oh, come on. Mike doesn't have the show anymore.
No, he doesn't. So. I don't either. Well, I do, but that's not why I want to get out of here.
Hey.
We've got a Patreon show we still got to do tonight. All right, last question. Death Watch, not the clan prediction. So who do you think is bound to die? Like, I just have a strong feeling someone's going to pass before the season's over with. There needs to be some loss here. But who's it going to be?
I mean, your top 2 candidates, I think, continue to be Crosshair or Hunter, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was against Hunter, and I said last episode that they wouldn't do that. I want to walk it back just a little bit. I'm not saying they couldn't.
Let me ask you a question before you get all the way into your answer.
Okay.
Could they do a second season without Hunter? If he was truly dead, could they do a second season without Hunter? They
could, but here's my problem with Hunter dying and why I was against it last episode. And I am to some extent. I'm okay with it if somebody steps up into Hunter's role. Like, somebody needs to lead the Bad Batch. It can't be Omega. She's too young. Although she's got a good heart and half the time she's probably right. But I don't feel like it can be anybody else. The only person that I would like to see, which I think would be amazing, would be somebody like Echo. Like, give Echo the opportunity to really step up, be the leader of Clone Force 99. Mind you, a enhanced clone art group that is being led now by a reg, which I think would be kind of cool. But someone needs to fill that gap for Hunter. And nobody on that team has really shown the leadership outside of maybe Echo. I think Echo has it in him. I mean, he served under Rex.
Yeah, and Twan just said what I was thinking. I think they would largely probably go to Rex, and they would just join Rex's group.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's enough respect there for it, and Echo already wants to do that anyway, right? And I think Tech and Wrecker like to eat, so it just makes sense for them to go and join the group, when especially if they feel maybe a bit directionless in that way, if they were to lose Hunter. Because I'm with you, I don't think they continue to strive or do anything on their own. I don't think they go back to SIDS, because none of them really know what they're doing in that capacity. I think the only thing they know what to do is to go back to the people they know, and that tends to be, I think that would be Rex, because they're not going to go on strike missions on their own or anything like that either.
So and I'm fine with. I mean, I can see Rex being let's just go to Rex. He's a leader, but then you got to think, what's in it for Rex to continually keep Omega safe? Like he acknowledges you're special. I've never seen one like you, that kind of thing. But for Hunter, it's very personal. He's got that fatherhood relationship. And if all they're going to do is just bunk up with Rex and that's the end of it, I mean, I don't know if that's the Bad Batch. To me, it feels like they do need to be still running around doing mercenary work, or as we talked about, maybe going into the underworld. And Rex ain't going in there, right? He's got a whole thing he needs to do. He's fighting off, the Empire until that stops. But right. I have a hard time trying to get behind why Rex has any obligation to, other than just good natured protect Omega. That wouldn't mean, okay, well, Omega, you're going to stay here with us, and you guys aren't doing these missions, and I'm not sending. I mean, I don't know. It just
why would he feel obligated to protect her? I don't know that I think that that's a requirement for them to be with Rex and them. Rex would be like, okay, well, Hunter thought you could do the job, so we're going to treat you like everybody else, and then Tech, Echo, and Wrecker would probably, say that was okay, and that they trust her and to kind of be part of the group. And they could still go do things. I don't think that Rex would baby her or anything like that, unless there was some specific type of thing. But Rex probably already knows that she's doing missions and whatnot already. So
all I'm saying is I don't think Rex is going to be. I don't think he takes Hunter's place though. I thought that's what you guys said.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. Yeah, no, absolutely not. I think that would end up probably being more of a Wrecker kind of fills that role, kind of. Again, more the crazy big brother uncle type of thing, but.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other guys would rally around her as well as they could. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I misunderstood. I thought you meant as the leader of the group. You were talking more as the father figure for.
Yes, that's
for
exactly right. I don't think he's not vested in that way with her.
Yeah.
They kind of
I don't think anybody can fill that role.
Right.
She's attached to him.
So I guess the Death Watch thing though. So that was the reason we got on that whole topic, was whether or not it would be somebody like Hunter that died. I still feel like Wrecker could still pass and would probably carry enough emotion for Omega to have her kind of go through another change. Like, I don't think she needs to be seedy or, disgruntled or hating life or, starts becoming darker. It's not in her nature. She's always going to be, the voice of, compassion, right? That's never going to change in my opinion. But I think something needs to happen here that's going to make her change. It doesn't mean, we talked about it being kind of a catalyst for them to getting more into more seedy missions and going into the underworld and all of that, and faking their death for the Empire. But somebody like that passing would certainly have an emotional impact on Omega, which would allow for some character growth, as well as the rest of the team too. Yeah. But without dismantling the Bad Batch, because I think without Hunter, you've got to fill that void, and kind of a big void to fill.
Well, and again, a lot of it hinges on whether there's a second season or not, because if there is, Omega doesn't have to be with the group anymore. She could get separated. She could be stolen by the Empire or taken by the Empire. They figure out what her value is. That we unlock that. We answer that question, that there is something unique about her, and we finally figure out what that is. And so even if someone doesn't die, you still got that disconnect. You have that loss in the team. And where even if you do, maybe you do have a loss of a Crosshair or a Wrecker, and you lose Omega, and then you're able to go into season 2, and it's kind of the search for Omega and the healing of the group in some way. But again, hopefully we get a really clear idea of how this might progress as we get into the next week. Although knowing Dave Filoni and the writers of the show so far, they're probably going to leave us hanging until the last episode. We'll just have to figure it out for ourselves. But hopefully we get more than 23 minutes each. That would be nice if we had more than 45 minutes left to show for the season. but we'll have to see what they decide to do. We haven't heard any inclinations that that's going to be the case, but we'll have to see.
Yep. Okay. I think that's going to do it. I mean, heck, we're almost on 2 hours. Sorry. It was a good, I mean, there's a lot to talk about here. Like I said, even though there wasn't a lot of, there really weren't a lot of show notes, if you think about it, for us at least. There were a lot of things that happened that certainly led us to a lot of conversations. And then with 2 episodes left, there's a lot to speculate in terms of where this is going to go. And I just don't know. I think we're going to have a really good, clear understanding as we get into the second episode or the end of the second episode. I don't think there'll be as many open questions for us, but this one really did kind of leave us with a, okay, now what kind of thing. So, which is good, right? We kind of want that. So,
yep. So huge shout out to everybody that's been in the chat with us on the live stream. We've had lots of people jumping in and out. We've seen the numbers kind of up and down all over the place. So we appreciate all the people who are chatting. Twan, Rob, Steph, TJ was out there. We had Cole and I'm sure other people that I'm not scrolling through and seeing right now. I apologize, but everybody that came out, we certainly appreciate Keaton, all the people we appreciate coming out and chatting with us. And hopefully you got your name up on the board. We appreciate all the awesome things. Dante, good luck with your basement. So, but yeah, so we're going to record the Patreon show after this, patreon.com/thecantinacast. If you'd like to listen to what we're going to talk about, again, we're going to talk a little bit more about Camino, LSA, and what's going on in that respect. So what do they want with her, and where is that angle of the show going with Camino and the clones? A little bit more in detail there and just speculate a little bit. So if you'd like to check it, please do that. earlymedia.com/Discord if you'd like to come over and join the conversation with us. Again, we've got a designated thread now, so you can have spoiler discussions. That's kind of cool, and kind of be safe. And if you want to have spoiler free, we got a channel for that. And then we got a spoiler one now too. So feel free to come out and engage in the conversation with you. We'd love to have you out there.
You forgot to mention on the Patreon episode, I'm going to do show and tell again, because I got more stuff in the mail that I'll share with our viewers and supporters. So
this was 2 hours.
Yeah, wait till I get to
when do you get a load of Albert?
Okay, thanks again, everybody. We'll be back next week for episode 382, which will be the penultimate episode of Bad Batch Season 1. See you then.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.